let's talk about classic Doom's demons. You've seen them, you've definitely heard them, and just about everybody knows of them. They all have some kind of role, and they all exceed well at it. Some more than others, and some a little too well. But, considering the game's age, there is no doubt that these demons are very primitive. Not to say that back then they weren't revolutionary, however, as expected, they have fallen behind a lot. They show their age, and honestly I am happy that they do, since they act more like perfect canvases for us to chalk our ideas onto. So the question is, how can we improve the roster? How do we go about giving them all a unique identity and have the player treat every single demon as a chess piece instead of another bad guy to shoot? First things first, there's something I would love to address. If you come here from my previous video, I would appreciate it if you'd stick around, but if you want to get straight into the meat of the video, then by all means head over to the next timestamp. So my last video got a lot of attention. Like, these were levels that I genuinely was not prepared for. Currently, at the time I'm writing this video, we're sitting at 8.9k views on that video, and we have also reached a whopping 640 subs, which is simply put berserk. I want to thank you all for the support. Just seeing you all share your opinions and discuss in the comments is just heartwarming. Not to mention the amount of people that told me I inspired them to start their own projects or anything by the likes of that. It's a really strong feeling to me, and I'm so happy I can be the person that pushes others to just create something. So, let's go over some things here. Why do I say that classic Doom's roster has fallen behind? Well, simply put, in my opinion, a lot of the demons are basically just bigger versions of the same core enemy. Hell Knights, Barons, Cyberdemons, Kakudemons, and others very often boil down to having larger hitboxes, more health, and attacks that are simply just variations of the same basic fireball chucker role. Now, not to say that these enemies are identical. A Cyberdemon is obviously much more threatening than an imp, and a Baron can control space in a way that weaker enemies just can't. But when you break down how the player interacts with them, the solution is often very similar. Dodge the projectile, maintain distance, and keep shooting until the enemy falls over. This means that many encounters derive their difficulty primarily from numbers and map design, rather than from the unique behaviors of the enemies themselves. Doom's combat is still fantastic, because the level design does so much of the heavy lifting, but the monsters individually don't always demand dramatically different responses from the player. Compare that to some of the more specialized demons. Revenants force players to respect their homing missiles. Archvals can resurrect dead demons and punish players who stay exposed for too long, albeit in a really annoying manner. Pain elementals constantly generate additional threats if left alive. Mancubi create dangerous projectile patterns that control large areas of the arena. That's why I generally exclude demons like Revenants, as well as a few others from the quote-unquote big imp category. They introduce mechanics that alter how the player approaches an encounter instead of simply increasing the punishment for making mistakes. To be clear, I don't think this is a flaw. Classic Doom's monsters are iconic for a reason, and their simplicity is part of why the game remains so easy to understand and so endlessly replayable. Even today, skilled mappers can create incredible encounters using nothing more than the original roster. However, I do think this is one area where gameplay mods can meaningfully expand on the formula and give familiar demons new abilities, which can dramatically increase the number of interesting decisions a player has to make. And so, with this out of the way, let's take a gander at what I have personally done with the demons in my own mod, the Abyssal Crown. To those unaware of what the Abyssal Crown is, I am going to link the Doom World page in the description. But as a TLDR, this is a total conversion story campaign mod where I try to rewrite the story of the Slayer. My goal here is to merge classic Doom's philosophy with the one from the modern games. Let's start off with the bottom of the barrel, Fodder Demons. Zombiemen haven't received many changes, but now they have the ability to jump and roll. Admittedly, I can't say I coded this myself. Initially I was going to, as in I was this close to grabbing all of the sprites and coding this behavior in myself, but before I reworked the options menu of the mod, I realized that there's a toggle for this exact thing, so I just decided to use it. Zombie men are supposed to be the weakest enemy in the base game. The problem is that in a lot of gameplay mods, weak enemies tend to become completely irrelevant once the player gets stronger weapons. By all means, you stop seeing them as enemies and start seeing them as moving decorations. By giving zombie men the ability to jump and roll, they become slightly less predictable without losing their identity as bottom-of-the-barrel cannon fodder. They are still pretty weak and easy to kill, but now they occasionally do something that forces you to pay attention. More importantly, these abilities help zombie men stay relevant throughout the entire campaign, not because they suddenly become dangerous on their own, but because they become harder to just completely ignore. I don't have all too much more to say about shotgunners. They've basically received the exact same treatment zombie men did, where they can jump and roll. I did give them an additional attack however, which triggers pretty rarely, a triple shot slam fire. For the record, they actually do less damage with a slam fire. Initially, I gave them the exact same damage they normally do, but it was far too much. Imps are much more agile overall, and they dash left and right when chucking their fireball. I want them to be agile and annoying without them being extremely fast and overwhelming for the player, so the next best thing were these annoying dashes which allowed them to basically relocate after chucking the fireball, hopefully confusing people. Moving on to the heavy demon category. Hell Knights have been mostly turned from a mini baron into a charging, ground-slamming melee unit. Funny story about this is that when I initially started to work on this project, I felt very dead set on keeping them as big imps, despite two of my friends suggesting for ages to give it a running ground pound attack. When I started to work on improving the demons, I decided to why not just do it, and let me tell you, it was the single best decision yet. These guys very quickly went from a disposable spammy unit to one that you have to treat with respect. At any point during an encounter, you may have one of them jump right in front of you or slamming you directly head on, which I can assure you fucking hurts. I may need to tweak those damage values a bit. Cacodemons are much bigger than usual to bring out the sense of scale better. They are generally the same, except they now have more health and also sport the new attacks similar to the ones of the modern Cacodemons, where they fire a lot of projectiles in one go. In a way, these guys are like floating snipers. Mancubi are the ones that have been changed quite a lot. You know how in the modern titles they act as tanks that you should not get near, otherwise you will pay? Well, here it is. Not only are they generally bigger and have much more health, but you'll want to think twice before running point blank into them. I really wanted them to feel like an obstacle, a giant slab of meat that really doesn't like it when you enter its personal space. They also have a new attack that's definitely pretty rare, where they fire 6 fireball volleys in a row as opposed to just 6. On top of that, they also have a new retaliation attack whenever they get knocked back on their asses, where they slam their cannons and immediately do a 6 fireball volley. Arachnotrons were a really tough nut to crack. A lot of these changes I've done to the demons I came up with relatively fast, but Arachnotrons took me a good 2 days or so of thinking. I ended up with the conclusion that they should simply be a hybrid. They should be decent at long ranges, good at point blank, and also good at putting pressure on the player. Instead of firing continuously until they break line of sight, they now fire a volley of 8 plasma balls. At the end of said volley, they have a chance to jump to 4 different attacks. A plasma shotgun attack where they fire 4 bolts in a diamond shape, an artillery sort of attack where they chuck 2 grenades behind the player that explode after a duration, and a barrage version of both of these. Either 3 different plasma shotgun attacks in a row, or the rarer artillery barrage that involves 6 of these grenades instead of 2. Remember pain elementals? Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Of all the demons so far, these guys have received their most changes. They are practically unrecognizable. I never liked the idea of them simply being living spawners. They were far too destructive and were far too important of a target, to the point that you just had to drop literally everything you are doing to make sure these things are dead. In my opinion, that's just kinda bullshit. So I have ditched their spawner ability entirely in favor of them spitting out lost souls as projectiles. Killing them, however, still spawns in 3 lost souls, so their functionality isn't 100% removed. If Cacodemons were efficient at long ranges, then these guys excel in close quarters. The dynamic I had in mind is that Cacodemons are snipers that get pushed back easily, whilst pain elementals are basically shotguns that are hard to push back and prefer to be in your face all the time. I can't just not address their rolling attack there. I know I said that adding the Hell Knight's Ground Slam was the best decision, but they have to give the crown to the pain elemental. It was 12 AM when I came up with this idea, and I was losing my shit because it was the single best idea I've ever come up with. And no, I did not stop coding until 3 AM when it was somewhat functional and easy to clean up in the next day. I was fucking tired and dissociating by like 2 AM, but I pushed through it and it was worth it. And for the final, shortest category so far, super heavy demons. Barons move quicker and now have this new triple fireball bruiser attack. Additionally, they are much larger and have increased health, which should hopefully differentiate them from Hell Knights. Another thing I want to do is make these guys a commitment to kill, as they are very volatile. Whenever they go under 30% health, they go into a rage mode. When they enter rage mode, they are noticeably faster and only attack with their bruiser attack. They are pretty close to dying by that point, so this isn't a big problem, but it is going to be an issue if you weaken them and then move on to the next demon without finishing the job. Cyber demons. Oh boy. No longer are they unfair sitting ducks that do an absolutely ungodly amount of damage. They are so much bigger now, and they are very mobile as they dash in all directions and moving, and also feature a brand new lunging stomp attack if you're at mid-range. This is a really rare demon to face overall, so I wanted him to be really mean and to keep you on your feet. In my opinion, that quote-unquote dance you do with a cyber demon just gets really boring after a while. But by making them dash and lunge, they'll make sure you do much more than just walk left to right. Don't worry about the rocket damage there, it has been significantly nerfed. By default, it's unbelievably unfair and a guaranteed insta-kill sitting at a whopping 300 total damage. That's been off to the ground, and you'll now have some room for error, but not too much. And that's about it. You may have noticed that I did omit demons like the Archviles and Revenants. Revenants are for the most part unchanged, as I find them to be very good and unique as is, and I haven't really gone around to Archviles and Masterminds since they are not found in the Demo 1 of the Abyssal Crown. Thank you all so much for the support again. I can't find words for this, it means the world. And also thank you so much for watching. I'll be catching you all in the next video.